Since October 2023, if you've been reading the headlines at all, if you are a Jewish American, if you are any degree separation from a Jewish American, since the start of the war in Gaza, you will know that anti-Semitism has been on the rise. So just released today is this report by the American Jewish Committee, and it is on the state of anti-Semitism in America in 2024. And one of the reasons this stuck out to us is because they say this is really the first in-depth analysis of American Jews and U.S. adults who are not Jewish since October 7th, 2023, and Hamas's attack on Israel. So we wanted to do a deeper dive on this. Joining me now is Sarah Van Loon with the American Jewish Committee. Thanks so much for being with us, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me. Good afternoon.
So in this report, the AJC describes anti-Semitism in the U.S. as, quote, reaching a tipping point. How so?
Absolutely. We've seen that the anti-Jewish hate that's engulfed the world since the October 7th, 2023 terror attack, it wasn't just a moment in time, but it's threatening the freedoms of Americans and American Jews in particular on a daily basis. This makes them feel less secure and less safe, and it's causing them to change the way they're living their lives to avoid being targets.
Can we get a little bit more specific about that? I would be interested to understand, what is happening and how are they changing even their behavior or things that they wear, things like that.
Absolutely. So I think one of the most startling statistics that we're seeing in our 2024 report is that more than 3/4 of U.S. American Jews, 73%, report feeling less secure than they did a year ago. AJC, we've been doing these studies for almost half a decade now, and just take, for example, that same question in 2021, where only 1/3 of American Jews felt that way. So to see such a large jump is really disturbing, and I think speaks to this moment in time that American Jews are in after the October 7th attack. So we're seeing them change their behaviors and what they're wearing. They may not wear a Star of David necklace or a head covering, a kippah or a yarmulke, when they're walking outside or just being around living their lives. Some of them are even stopping going to synagogue or other places that could identify them as being Jewish out of fear of being a target. And I know I don't need to remind your viewers that just going to synagogue, even this past fall during the Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah, there was a Minneapolis synagogue that was targeted, and there was a person arrested for making terroristic calls just during high holiday services. This isn't just a Jewish issue. All Americans should be concerned about this and wanting to take action.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because what was interesting too about this report is that 1,700 Jewish Americans were surveyed, and then 2,000 people in the general public. So I'm curious about that dynamic and some of the information that you were able to glean from the general public side of this.
Yeah, I think there was two major takeaways for me. One, that we still have work to do. If you're looking at the U.S. general public, particularly the subset of young Americans aged 18 to 29, almost half, 4 in 10, do not understand what the term anti-Semitism is, or they've never seen it before. So we've got some education work to do here, but it also wasn't all bad news. 85% of the U.S. general public did believe the phrase that Israel has no right to exist is anti-Semitic. You wouldn't apply that double standard to any other country, and so it was encouraging to me that the broader U.S. general public, maybe some of the older survey respondents, can recognize that as a form of contemporary anti-Semitism.
Did the survey look at all at children? They often get lost in these types of surveys and these looks at society.
It did, and unfortunately, it was another disturbing response. So that younger Jewish adults, so age 18 to 29, they were more likely than any other survey respondent over the age of 30 to report that they have personally experienced anti-Semitism in the last 12 months. So we're seeing just this super rise in anti-Semitism across the United States. It's impacting Jewish children the most.
I'm curious as well. I think a lot of us have seen over the course of the last year and a half or so what's been happening on American college campuses. Did you guys take a closer look at that, and what did you find?
We did, and we found that more than 1/3 of American Jewish students on college campuses also had to change their behavior in order to feel more safe on campus, in part because they were experiencing anti-Semitism in a larger capacity. And more than half of Jewish American college students said that they changed it out of fear of anti-Semitism. I think the lesson here is really simple. Jewish students must feel safe on college campuses, and clearly too many colleges have yet to learn that lesson.
If I could just step aside from the survey results for just a moment, and I just wanted to ask you, obviously you're speaking on behalf of the American Jewish Committee, as the Saturday deadline looms for a return of hostages, we have this potential for a broken ceasefire. I was just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
We're all very distressed by both Hamas's rhetoric of saying that they're pulling out of the ceasefire to the different demands being made. Our number one concern is making sure that those innocent hostages come home, that they return from the terror tunnels in Gaza. I think those of you who saw the reports from this past Saturday of the 3 men who were released, the conditions they are in are horrific. So we need to make sure that all of those hostages come home, including the 6 Americans who are still being held hostage. We have work to do. We cannot let this deal collapse. We need to make sure that we're bringing everyone home and that we bring them home now.
And I will say, too, I spent some time on the American Jewish Committee's website, and, lots of real-time conversations happening on there and interviews that people can go and read, things even about, President Trump wanting the U.S. to take over Gaza and these very sensitive topics. So I think, that's probably a very good resource I found as someone who's not Jewish to sort of learn about what's going on from the perspective of the American Jewish Committee as well.
Thank you. Yes, ajc.org. We are a staunchly nonpartisan, centrist organization. Our job is to help educate and be a part of the conversation. This is the work that we do across America in more than 25 regions, and also opportunities to participate virtually, whether in our Advocacy Anywhere conversations or locally in your local regional office. But our job is to help educate and empower and to build bridges and coalitions with those of other faith and ethnic communities. So I invite all of your viewers to help us and join the conversation.
All right, Sarah Van Loon, we really appreciate your time today from the American Jewish Committee. A new report out just today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.